Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old 4th Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Well, hello. Here we are looking at the closing, 8 days of the presidential election cycle. We can see it. It's so close. And I, for one, am kind of grateful we're getting to that point, honestly. I don't know how many of you are at this point where you're just mentally, physically, psychologically exhausted. But I'm definitely getting there. I've been reviewing this morning everything that was spoken behind a podium at Madison Square Garden. And I, like many of you, am aware that Donald Trump has absolutely no chance in winning New York. Would get clobbered or just New York City, but will not win New York State. So what other point was there for him to go to Madison Square Garden, except I firmly believe to pay homage to a 1939 Nazi rally in the same venue. Well, not the same venue. They've rebuilt it since then. But a 1939 rally for Nazis in America in Madison Square Garden. To me, there's no other benefit. This was not a rally. When you listen to everything that was said at this rally, this was nothing more than a hat tip, a nod to the dark, angry, white male, white nationalist, Nazi-friendly base of the electorate. This was a total MAGA, not even trying to soften the tone. Remember when we were going to dial down the rhetoric after he got shot at the first time and the second time? We were going to dial down the rhetoric, right? They've never dialed down the rhetoric, and they refuse to do so now. Yesterday was nothing more than red meat at the basket of deplorables. Tucker Carlson, Hulk Hogan, Rudy Giuliani, a comedian I've never heard of before with his Puerto Rican slur. And honestly, maybe the goal was to bring out all the nastiest, meanest, snarkiest, racist demagoguery before Donald Trump so that Donald Trump looks like the friendly, soft grandpa that we're supposed to love. That's all I can figure. I want to start not with the comedian and the Puerto Rican slur because that's the one getting all the attention, but how about Tuckums himself? Listen to Tucker Carlson talking about Kamala Harris and mocking her being multiracial.
At that moment, it's going to be pretty tough for them 10 days from now to look in the eye to America with a straight face. It's going to be pretty hard to look at us and say, you know what? Kamala Harris, she got 85 million votes because she's just so impressive. As the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president, it was just a groundswell of popular support. And anyone who thinks otherwise is just a freak or a criminal. At this stage of the game, after 9 years of listening to their lies and finding every single one of them totally false, no, it's not safe and effective, and no, she's not impressive. It's very hard for me to believe the rest of us are going to say, you know what, Joe Scarborough, you're right. You're right. She won fair and square because she's just so impressive. I don't think so. And to me, that is liberation. It's the freedom to say what's obviously true as a free man and not a slave. And I just want to say thank you, Donald Trump, for that.
Thank goodness Donald Trump came along to free Tucker Carlson to be able to say what is definitely in the deep crevices of his gray matter. Because before, it's not that he couldn't, it's that we used to have guardrails on incendiary, racist, white nationalist speech. It used to be what ended your career. I think of Jimmy the Greek Snyder, who was an NFL pregame commentator on CBS Sports, who lost his job for some comments he made in an interview. Take a listen to this.
A reporter from WRC-TV
1988.
was asking questions about Martin Luther King's birthday and the progress blacks have made in society. There, CBS sports commentator Jimmy the Greek Snyder gave his impressions of blacks in coaching in the National Football League. His answers could raise as much controversy as the statements by former Dodgers executive Al Campanis last April on ABC's Nightline news program.
Yeah, pretty soon they're going to have to equalize it for the blacks, for the Greeks, the Jews, and for everybody. I mean, let's make it equal for everybody, you know.
And is it equal? What about in sports?
Well, they've got everything. If they take over coaching like everybody wants them to, there's not going to be anything left for the white people. I mean, all the players are black. I mean, the only thing that the whites control is the coaching jobs. Now, I'm not being derogatory about it, but that's all that's left for them. The black talent is beautiful. It's great. It's out there. But, you know, the only thing left for the whites is a couple coaching jobs.
Yeah, maybe we need to get more black coaches, don't we?
Oh, it's all right with me.
Okay, well,
I'm sure that they'll take over that pretty soon, too.
Wow.
WRC was apparently flooded with complaint calls after the Snyder comments were aired. Snyder issued an apology saying he was truly sorry for anything he said. CBS spokesperson said no decision has been made as to whether Snyder will work Sunday's NFL Today broadcast. Snyder is spending the night with Gene Upshaw, the Players Union executive director in Washington, and he has received support calls from Walter Payton and Ahmad Rashad.
Well, he did lose his job. Long story short, he did lose his job. I'll read this from the Washington Post back in 1988. It was January 16th, actually. Jimmy the Greek Snyder, CBS sports commentator, analyst, and oddsmaker, was fired by the network after a controversial television interview in which he said many blacks were superior athletes because of breeding from the time of slavery, and that the only area in sports left for whites was coaching. Yeah, that used to get people fired. And, you know, thanks to Donald Trump now, You heard Tucker Carlson basically allude to, they've been freed like slaves to be able to say what's on their mind without repudiation. Tucker Carlson is grateful that he is now free to speak his mind, much the way Rush Limbaugh did when, inexplicably, ESPN thought it would be a good idea to bring white nationalists, social conservative radio broadcaster Rush Limbaugh on their NFL pregame conversation as well, where he was given the opportunity to say this about black quarterback Donovan McNabb back in 2003.
I'm sorry to say this. I don't think he's been that good from the get-go. I think what we've had here is a little social concern in the NFL. I think the media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. We're interested in black coaches and black quarterbacks doing well. I think there is a little hope invested in McNabb, and he got a lot of credit for the performance of this team that he really didn't deserve.
Now, of course, that did not end Rush Limbaugh's career because he had the cozy environment of conservative radio where white nationalists love that sort of unfiltered dialogue, as Tucker Carlson has alluded to. And Tucker Carlson has the safe space as well, and had it at Fox News for the longest time, and now has the cozy environs that Elon Musk has provided him. Donovan McNabb, by the way, played on a Philadelphia Eagles team that went 12-4, and the next year went 13-2. They went to the Super Bowl. He had a remarkable completion percentage, of course, threw for thousands of yards each season. That year, 3,200. The year after, 3,800. Back then, these numbers, I mean, this is like pedestrian numbers in today's NFL, but these numbers were eye-popping back then. His completion to interception ratios were very strong. 31 touchdowns to 8 interceptions the following year in 2004. But of course, that had more to do with the players all around him. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was the quarterback. And in Rush Limbaugh's case, the black quarterback that society was pulling for. Remember when Senator Mitch McConnell and House Speaker Mike Johnson, who, by the way, spoke at yesterday's Madison Square Garden rally. I mean, he got a firsthand visit. He knows full well what was said at this gig. Remember when they both insisted that the Harris-Walz campaign dialed down the rhetoric in the aftermath of the Trump attempted assassination in Pennsylvania? Remember that? Speaker Mike Johnson was there and heard this from Sid Rosenberg.
She is some sick bastard, that Hillary Clinton, huh? What a sick son of a bitch. The whole f***ing party, a bunch of degenerates. Lowlives, Jew haters, and lowlives.
Oh.
Every one of them. Every one of them.
And then, yes, you have a comedian, I'm using air quotes there, Tony Hinchcliffe. I've never heard of him before, with this Puerto Rican smear.
Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay, all right.
Yeah, see,
okay.
even he.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Again, normally I don't follow the national anthem, everybody.
Yeah, so he knew that the joke didn't land. By the way, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Governor Tim Walz were playing we're playing Madden on Twitch, in an attempt to appeal to young men. I mean, that's a smart way to go about it. A lot of that goes on. They were doing that while watching some of the rally and got to react to that in real time.
It really,
Let you listen to that.
Is. And, there's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay, all right. Okay, we're getting there. No.
Who is that jackwad? Who is that guy?
Actually, I think that's Tony Hinchcliffe, which is super disappointing. I mean, I don't. He's a comedian. I don't follow
this
crew
issue
very
with Puerto
closely,
Rico
but...
again. I saw it. This was when he went down after Helene, the horrific hurricane. People there, everybody coming together. We sent helicopters down from Minnesota and personnel. This is how you do this during this. And in the first hours, Trump complaining about the response. Does anybody remember how he responded to Maria in Puerto Rico? It was absolutely horrific. Down there insulting people, throwing it. Look, I know that the folks who are on here today understand this. People in Puerto Rico are citizens. They pay taxes and they serve in the military at almost a higher rate than anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, it's like super upsetting. Obviously, it's super upsetting to me. My family is from Puerto Rico. I'm Puerto Rican. And like the thing that is so messed up that I wish more people understood is that the things that they do in Puerto Rico are a testing ground for the policies and the horrors that they wish to, and that they do unveil in working class communities across the United States. And I need people to understand that when you have some a-hole calling Puerto Rico floating garbage, know that that's what they think about you. That's just what they think about you. It's what they think about anyone who makes less money than them. It's what they think about the people who serve them food in a restaurant. It's what they think about the people who fold their clothes in a store. Like,
yep.
You're
dude,
right.
Are you serious? Are you serious?
Yeah, the privilege of being on this campaign is traveling across the entire country. There are hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans across in battleground states that need to send them a message on this.
I want them to
you gotta vote.
Roll that. I want everyone in Philadelphia to see that clip. If you live in Philly, why don't you go and see that
Reading?
Clip?
Yes.
If you live in Reading, Pennsylvania, which I was there. I was in Reading last week. If you're in Reading, you're in Philly, look at that trash. Like, what is trash is people actually just thinking of other human beings that way. Are you actually for real? And the thing that gets me is that these people their entire lives rely on working class people.
I mean, the same could be said about immigrants, whether here legally or illegally as well. And I'll dive into that a little bit. 60 Minutes had a great piece. We'll touch on that in just a little bit. Is MAGA unaware that 3.6% of Pennsylvania's population is Puerto Rican? That's a swing state. They need that state, right? 3.6% of the population. That's not huge, but it's not nothing. 1.1% of Wisconsin's population, Puerto Rican, a swing state. They need that state. Have to have that state in order for Donald Trump to win the presidency. Huh. And, I haven't even gotten to, they're in New York. 5% of the population of the state of New York, Puerto Rican. They're not going to get that state. And they certainly didn't help themselves yesterday in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But that's, again, not what the Madison Square Garden rally was about. It was a dog whistle to those who think exactly like Tony Hinchcliffe does. And Tucker Carlson, so grateful to have the freedom to be able to speak the way he and Tony Hinchcliffe do. Back after this, The Ron Show on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn. You can follow The Ron Show on your preferred social media platforms. That would be at Ron Show ATL, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, Facebook. By the way, I retweeted this on the Twitter X platform. I know. I got to get on something else. But until something else steps up, there we are still. And I liken it to sort of being behind enemy lines. I don't really think it's a complete total takeover by the enemy from within. But I do think that staying on that platform and trying to stake a claim that no, this used to be a bastion for dialogue that at least had some sort of balance and counterbalance. And as long as Elmo continues to let us stay on it, then I'm going to stay on it. Anyway, I did retweet this as well. This is just, I don't know why this isn't getting headlines. Comedian, I'm using the term lightly here, Tony Hinchcliffe with this, to me, even more vile and gross racist rhetoric from Trump's Madison Square Garden rally.
I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this.
He's like waving them away. Go away.
It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies, too.
Wow.
Just know that.
Wow.
They do. They do. There's no pulling out.
Oh, my God.
They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country.
God. That's what passes for comedy in MAGA. And again, try to make no sense of this electorally for Donald Trump and the Trump campaign. This was not about trying to win New York State. He has absolutely zero chance of winning the state of New York. Much like Kamala Harris has absolutely zero chance of winning, I don't know, Iowa, Indiana, Tennessee. Not going to happen. Donald Trump was trying to woo a key demographic to solidify his base, the white nationalist voter base, the stand by and stand down base. Meanwhile,
Harris focusing on key demographics, courting a black congregation in West Philly.
But when I think about the days ahead and the God we serve,
wait for it.
I am confident that his power will work through us. Because, church, I know we were born for a time such as this.
Visiting a barbershop to speak with young black men.
It's good to be home. How are you doing?
And meeting with Latino voters at this Puerto Rican restaurant.
Wait, what?
We're afraid of the cages.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I so strongly believe that our campaign in this fight really is not against something, it is for something.
Today marks Harris's 14th trip to battleground Pennsylvania, a state critical to her path to victory.
Yes, a state critical to anyone's path to victory. And she didn't plan on visiting the Puerto Rican restaurant the same day Tony Hinchcliffe was making Puerto Rican smears at Madison Square Garden. Who could possibly have known that that was going to happen simultaneously? It just kind of did. Hell of a split screen. And by the way, as the Trump campaign rolled out their response, this joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. I have to tell you, the speakers had a teleprompter at Madison Square Garden. Did no one think to review Tony Hinchcliffe's notes, what he was going to say before loading it on said teleprompter to go over in any way, shape, form, or fashion what he might have been saying? Guess not, because they want to distance themselves from it while having loaded the statements on the prompter for their own rally. That's discipline, right? Again, coincidentally, no one could possibly know Tony Hinchcliffe was going to smear Puerto Ricans at the Madison Square Garden Trump rally. But Ana Navarro at a Harris-Walz rally with Governor Tim Walz yesterday in Arizona.
And lastly, I am voting for my community. ¿Dónde están mis latinos? Because let me tell you this. The other day I read that a lot of Latinos think that when Donald Trump says racist things, he's not talking about them. Wake up, people. Who the hell do you think he's talking about?
Right?
So let me say this. When he said, I'm gonna vote for my community because I refuse to forget. I refuse to have Trump amnesia. He said that we were rapists and criminals. I will remember. He said that we are vermin. I will remember. He said that we poison the blood of this country. I will remember. He said that we are invaders. I will remember. His rhetoric helped inspire a man who drove 600 miles and hunted down Latinos in a El Paso Walmart. Yep. I will remember. He said just the other day that we are the trash can of the world. That came out of the trash can that is his mouth.
Wow.
And we are going to send Donald Trump to the trash can of history.
I prefer the trash can of Rikers personally, but that's just me. More Ron Show after this. America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn.
This is the Ron Show on America One Radio.
So this entire segment may be a little bit of a personal indulgence, so I apologize. However, I will tell you it is political in nature and does speak to, I think, what is happening in journalism in these United States. And we're seeing the effects of this at the national level and at the local level, which is where I'll get to. Obviously, a lot of noise has been made about the Jeff Bezos-owned Washington Post choosing not to endorse in the 2024 presidential election. First time they've done that since 1988. I don't remember exactly why they didn't do it in 1988. I was 14 at the time. Couldn't tell you. Not going to research it. It's concerning, though. It's deeply concerning that there appears to be some concern at the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times as well, to not run afoul of a would-be dictator. On day one, that's what he said, on day one. Someone with fascistic tendencies, as his former chief of staff, John Kelly, verbalized to the New York Times, knowing he was being recorded. It's deeply concerning that democracy dies in darkness, right? And there are folks who are canceling their Washington Post subscriptions. Okay, cool. I did too. However, I would also tell you that that's not where you hurt Jeff Bezos. You hurt Jeff Bezos when you cancel your Amazon subscription, your Prime membership. You going to do that? That makes people think, right? Oh, crap. I gotta find some other way to shop online. Yes, you do. If you really want to make a statement, you gotta cancel your Amazon subscription, your Prime membership. My Prime TV viewing done. I don't order stuff from Amazon anyway, so I don't care. I'm a old school brick and mortar guy. Back in my day, we used to go to the store and we used to try clothes on before we bought them. Yes, I still do that. I'll hit up a Marshall's. I'll hit up a TJ Maxx. That's how I shop. I mean, I can get the same name brands and usually cheaper. I don't know how they do it. I don't know what their business model is. I don't even know who they support. Hopefully, I'm just going to go in blindly. Tell me if I'm wrong. Please, by all means. Ron at ronshowatl.com if you want to drop me an email, or 404-919-2725. Those of you who know me, you can text me. Actually, you can text me at that number as well. That being said, if you really want to make an impact on Jeff Bezos, canceling the Washington Post subscription is like the least painful thing. I'm pretty sure the Washington Post is probably a loss leader within his conglomerate. No, you got to hit him where it hurts. Amazon Prime, the app, your TV. That's where you do it. Hit him there. Anyway, neither here nor there. I told you this was going to be a little bit of a personal indulgence. I spent 3 days last week in South Carolina assisting my good friend Mal Hyman, running for Congress in South Carolina, 7th Congressional District. It is an R+11 district. There is no mistaking. We on the campaign are fully aware that it's an uphill climb, that it would take a gargantuan effort to win that congressional seat. No doubt about it. To know the makeup of the rural do you call it urban? Like the most populated area of this district is the Grand Strand along the coast of South Carolina. Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, Surfside Beach, Murrells Inlet, Conway, and then, of course, you've got a city, Florence, South Carolina, within that district as well. These are not large metro areas. Although Myrtle Beach is one of, if not the fastest growing metropolitan area in the country. It's been that way for like 10 years, 20 years, right there with Vegas. It's mostly a rural district outside of those two urban cores, I guess you could call it. There's a lot of transplantation from the Rust Belt. Folks who, ironically, came from union jobs and moved down to retire and somehow lose their roots. So I spent a few days there last week and did some time on the show with Mal and with some of his surrogates, and stayed on top of the headlines of the day as the show went on. I canvassed with him. I set him up with an interview for Latinos in Myrtle Beach, a social media venture there that has like 70,000 followers. Again, it's like 35,000 registered voters in that congressional district who are of Hispanic descent. So, leaving no stone unturned. McClatchy is one of those large corporations that own a lot of newspapers throughout the country. They own the state newspaper in Columbia, South Carolina, the Island Packet, the Beaufort Gazette, the Sun News in Myrtle Beach. Brian Tolley? Brian Tolley is the president and editor of all of those newspapers. He also was part of the editorial board who reviewed the questionnaire that they sent to the candidates in all 7 congressional districts. And I'm going to read for you at the bottom of their editorial board rollout of these endorsements what they wrote. The state and federal endorsements were made by South Carolina opinion editor Matthew T. Hall, letters editor Allison Askins, and regular columnist Matt Wiley, a Republican strategist and analyst, in consultation with Brian Tolley, president and editor of the state, the Island Packet, the Beaufort Gazette, and the Sun News. So a questionnaire was sent out, and candidate Mal Hyman, the Democratic nominee for the 7th Congressional District, completed his questionnaire. His opponent, the incumbent Russell Fry, MAGA Republican, did not complete his questionnaire. And yet, still, the editorial board here at the state newspaper endorsed Russell Fry, which to me felt more like a prognostication, like asking the panel, so who's going to win? And they all announce who they believe is going to win. And I'll tell you why. First of all, let me read for you what they wrote. It was one paragraph. One paragraph after a long questionnaire was sent out and turned in by Mal Hyman. In Northeast District 7, the state newspaper editorial board endorses incumbent Republican Russell Fry over Democrat Mal Hyman. This was the endorsement we spent the most time discussing. Fry, elected in 2022 after easily defeating 5-term incumbent Representative Tom Rice in the GOP primary, was one of only 2 congressional candidates to not reply to our questionnaire. Hyman seemed thoughtful, but he didn't offer much in the way of specific solutions in his Q&A. And he also was hard to reach for what should have been an easy follow-up question seeking to fact-check a couple of his figures. Given that Hyman has already fallen well short in 2 other races for this seat since 2018, a third time does not feel like a charm. Let me reread that line again. Given that Hyman has already fallen well short in 2 other races for this seat since 2018, a third time does not feel like a charm. That is the nod to the prognostication. They're not endorsing at this point. They're predicting. That's what the editorial board of the state has reduced themselves to. One paragraph and predicting. So they conclude, we reluctantly endorse Fry and hope that he doesn't show such disinterest in the press or the public in a second term. I asked Mal Hyman the background on the fact-checking a couple of his figures. They did have a follow-up question about something he mentioned in the questionnaire, and he said it took 3.5 days to respond. But that he did so well before they went to press. It's 2024. It's not like you had to typeset each font with, the little printing press nodules for each letter. It's 2024. So I'll be crafting a letter to the editor a little bit later on today to respond to that on behalf of the campaign. But I have to tell you, I don't know what questions they had, but if they waited 3.5-4 days as they had to get a response from Mal, do they not? I mean, was he supposed to turn in like a term paper? That's literally what his reaction to me was. He's like, "Oh, so I'm turning in a dissertation. This is a college paper now that I have to turn in with footnotes and citations, et cetera, and so on." He was answering a questionnaire. He answered the questionnaire. This questionnaire, by the way, I'm sitting here looking at it. It is pages long. Here are the questions. What will be your top domestic and top international priority in Congress? He goes off. Top domestic priority, the economy. Top international priority, peace through strength and common sense. And by the way, those aren't all he said. There are paragraphs of answers for both of those pillars of the question. How would you balance the changing climate with economic and energy concerns? 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs in a response. What changes would you make to U.S. immigration policy? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs for a response. In what circumstance and how late in pregnancy should abortion be legal? 2 beefy paragraphs. How would you view the events at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021 and their aftermath? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. Why should voters choose you over your opponent in this election? 2 lengthy paragraphs. Russell Fry did not even answer the questionnaire. And the state newspaper, in their infinite wisdom, decided, well, we're going to endorse Russell Fry. Given that Hyman has already fallen well short in 2 other races for this seat since 2018, a third time does not feel like a charm. They're guessing more than endorsing who's going to win that congressional seat. Make no mistake, within the Mal Hyman campaign, we too are pretty aware what the odds look like. That's not the point. The point is, journalism needs to do its job. If you're going to, and look, it's 2024. I'm not sitting here saying that, editorial endorsements really mean jack shit anymore. I am, however, saying if journalists aren't going to do their jobs and hold candidates accountable, as they wanted to do with Mal Hyman and his questionnaire by following up with questions, or a question, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 questions, about things he stated. And by the way, I will give you his questionnaire answers in the show notes today at ronshowytl.com. Not afraid to show this to you. I'll give you the link to the endorsement as well, so you can read exactly what I'm reading to you. I'm not making this stuff up. Anyway, you will see that where his opponent chose not to participate in the editorial process in any way, shape, form, or fashion, Mal Hyman, Democrat for Congress in South Carolina's 7th Congressional District, out there canvassing in person, meeting people where they are, toured Coastal Carolina University's Thompson Library with me last Thursday, went to a groundbreaking for a domestic violence shelter in Conway, Carolina Forest, between Conway and Myrtle Beach that morning as well. Went to a meet and greet where I said this last week, met with folks from throughout Myrtle Beach and folks who have moved from other parts of the world to coastal South Carolina who are just aghast, just gobsmacked that Donald Trump even has even a remote chance of winning the White House. The man's out there meeting people. Where's Russell Fry? Seriously, where is Russell? And where are his answers to this questionnaire that the State Editorial Board deemed necessary to make their decision? And what does it signal to other candidates when they are rewarded if they don't fill out a questionnaire at all versus a lengthy, thought-out response to some important freaking questions before the State Editorial Board weighs in? Well, it seems to me, as is the case with Russell Fry, who has avoided debates. There have been debates bandied about by Chambers of Commerce, the League of Women Voters. I know that WMBF television in Myrtle Beach wanted to do a debate, and the Hyman campaign, we have said, sure, just tell us when and where. Apparently, Russell Fry's folks haven't said the very same thing, or else we would have had that televised debate by now, too, and we're 8 days out, so I guess it's not going to happen. And yet, you have a media entity, the McClatchy newspaper group there, with the Sun News and was it the Island Packet? I don't even know what that is. What is that? Hilton Head? I don't know. It sounds like something you can get at the grocery store for free. The state newspaper, which is one of the major papers in the state, along with the Post and Courier out of Charleston, a good outfit, by the way. I don't even know how they've endorsed. I have no idea. But when you have journalistic entities like what the McClatchy Group in South Carolina have done, doing what they do, they're rewarding nothingness over any substance at all. And I'm not sitting here telling you that the Hyman campaign gave bumper sticker slogan answers. I'm telling you, when you see in the show notes today at ronshowatl.com, the responses that were given, you're going to find that the Democratic nominee in South Carolina's 7th Congressional District gave out some well thought out responses. And Russell Fry gave nothing and was rewarded for giving nothing. When journalism does that, it's as bad, if not worse, than what the Washington Post and the LA Times have done with the presidential race by choosing not to endorse at all. You could make the argument that it's actually worse because it rewards the kid who didn't turn in the book report versus the kid who did, that you want to give a B- to. Back after this, The Ron Show on American One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn and wherever you podcast. All right, final few minutes of The Ron Show. Thank you for listening. I don't honestly know what to tell you about polling, except that it's such an inexact science, and we're in maybe a fluctuational era in that industry. Does it ever settle into a groove? I'm not sure. I don't buy into the race being as tight as it is. I've said this for a few weeks now. I believe that there is a percentage, and I don't know what it is. It could be 0.75%. It could be 1%. It could be 1.5%, 2%, 2.5%, 3%. I have no idea of likely voters who aren't going to show up in any poll because while I know that they're likely voters, the way pollsters do their business, they don't know that they're likely voters because they haven't voted yet, but they're going to vote. It's the folks who registered to vote when Kamala Harris ascended to the top of the Democratic Party ticket. By strict definition, they're not likely voters because they haven't voted before. They don't have a history of voting, so they can't be deemed likely voters. But they're more than likely voters. They're gonna voters, and there is no term for that. I like that, gonna voters. Newly registered gonna voters, NRGVs. If anybody asks, I made it up. In any event, a new ABC News Ipsos poll did come out yesterday that sort of gave folks on the left a little bit of a sigh of relief. Okay, think of it what you will.
This morning, a new ABC News Ipsos poll in the closing days of the campaign. So let's bring in ABC News political director and Washington bureau chief Rick Klein on what our new poll says about the race nationally, as well as the candidates' strengths and weaknesses on the major issues. Rick.
Janae, our latest ABC News Ipsos poll has a 4-point lead for Kamala Harris. That is by no means a safe lead. It is a little bit bigger than some of the other recent polling that we've seen, including the 538 polling average. But we are seeing a little bit of separation, including some solidifying among her base, doing slightly better among Latino voters and among black male voters than we've seen in some other recent polling. Maybe good signs for her. When you drill down on the top issues, you see a distinct advantage for Donald Trump on issues like handling of the economy, issues like handling crime, immigration, and the southern border. Those have been big issues for voters overall. But we're seeing Harris's issues begin to rise in importance as well. She has got an enormous edge on handling abortion rights, and a key one, protecting democracy, an 8-point edge for Kamala Harris. That is a key theme for her campaign in the closing days of this race. And when you look at what this all means for the battleground states in our national polling, things narrow when you look at the battlegrounds, and in the 538 average of the battleground states, you see it is basically tied almost everywhere. A slight Trump edge in several states, a slight Harris edge in several states in the Midwest, but everywhere we're talking about a margin of error race. And even as millions of Americans have already started voting, it is impossible to say who's actually winning or losing. This is as tight a race maybe as we've ever seen, Janae.
I don't know that it's going to be. And I'll have some more discussion on that tomorrow. I came across, I should give credit to my friend Daryl, who came across a link that made me really want to dive in on what they believe is, how did they term it? A blowout no one sees coming. And yeah, I'll get into that, if not tomorrow, at some point in time this week. But yes, as you heard mentioned before, there are some key demographics that are starting to show very well for Kamala Harris, and actually in some cases doing even better for Kamala than they were for Joe Biden. She is sort of in the same boat when it comes to men, 45%. Women, 56%. Joe Biden had 57%. You got to think that that's actually going to do better for her at some point in time. Amongst black voters, 90%. Joe Biden had 87%. Hispanic people, 64%. Joe Biden had 65%. Amongst whites, Harris actually with a little bit of an edge over Joe Biden in 2020, 43% to 41%. I think that's white women, if I'm not mistaken. Amongst black men, actually 6 percentage points better than Joe Biden did. So much for that narrative, right? Amongst black women, 1% better at 3% better, 93% to 90%. Amongst Hispanic men, 4% better than Joe Biden did at 63%. Hispanic women, slightly below. Actually, 5 percentage points below. That's a bit strange, but okay. 69% to 64% for Harris. Amongst white men, the same percent, 38%. Here's where it is, 3 percentage point better than Joe Biden with white women, 47 to Joe's 44. White men without college degrees, yeah, that's where she's trailing just about as badly as Joe Biden did. Again, white men without college degrees. That's the weakest demographic for the Democrat running for president. White women without college degrees, better, but still weak. White men with a college degree, 50% or better. White women with a college degree, 61% and better, way better, 7 percentage points better than Joe Biden. When you look at the age breakouts, 56% for the 18 to 29 demographic, although that's 4% off Joe Biden's numbers. All right, young people, where are you at? The 30 to 39 demo, 56% to 51%. Kamala's 5% better. 40 to 49-year-olds, she's right where Joe was at 54%. Slightly off amongst 50 to 64-year-olds by 3 percentage points less, and 4 percentage points better amongst those age 65 or better. That's the ABC News Ipsos poll that we spoke about, that you just heard about to lead this segment. And again, I'm going to talk to you about the folks at Vantage Data House. I reached out to them actually for an interview. I'd love to have them on, and maybe that's when we'll discuss it. And if I don't get them, then we'll just roll with it ourselves. The blowout no one sees coming. I'm not saying it's going to happen. They're saying that actually how all this data shapes up. I'd love to hear them out on it. I have my concerns, as many do. I actually believe, again, abortion is a huge issue. Cannot minimize the importance of abortion rights. I, however, do feel like there have been at least, 4 to 6 weeks of attacks on Kamala Harris that have gone unanswered. And I think the tightening of the polls have a lot to do with, specifically, I watch a lot of football, a lot of sporting events. You want to talk about white men without college degrees, right? I happen to be one of those. They've been running a nasty commercial that speaks about illegal immigrants in prison getting gender reassignment surgery at the taxpayer dime, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, first of all, there's a legal reason that is the case, but it's an attack ad that needs to be responded to, and it hasn't been yet. Anyway, we'll discuss at length those topics and more later this week on The Ron Show. Thank you for listening. 5 to 6 p.m., we do the replay at America One Radio, 11 p.m. to midnight at Progressive Voices via TuneIn, and wherever you podcast, you got it there as well. Show notes at RonShowATL.com. Have a great day.